Hello, everybody. We are going to let people in right now, letting people in. We'll be starting here in about 30 seconds. All right, well, people will be filtering in. So I want to say good morning and welcome everybody to our April VUSD Special Education District Advisory Committee meeting. We are both on Zoom and streaming on YouTube. For new viewers that may be wondering what this is all about, a quick little bit of background. SEDAC is an advisory committee that contributes parent voices and feedback to the work the district does through collaboration amongst parents, school sites, and district administration, helping to inform the development of practices to meet the needs of all learners, providing the community with insight into the special education process, and broadening of awareness of available resources for families. Our site representatives have a stake in the sharing of information with their school communities in order to foster district-wide connectedness. So what we are going to do right now is we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you guys can all stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Looks like we got a little bit of a smaller group today. I bet more people will be coming on in. What we're going to do next here is we are going to do roll call. So I am going to go by school. Diana is not here today. So I'm going to go by school. And if you hear your school, please unmute yourself and say that you are here. So let's start with Balboa.
Good morning, everyone. This is Leslie.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Shauna from Balboa.
Okay, excellent. Let's go with Buena.
Here.
All right, can you state your name, please?
Michelle Haslam from Buena.
Thank you. And Cabrillo. Let's go with Citrus Glen. Data.
Hi, good morning. It's Dora from Data.
All right, thank you. Let's go with Early Intervention Center. Okay. Elmhurst.
Hi, good morning. Ashley, I'm here.
Thank you.
And Jenna.
Thank you. EP Foster. All right. Foothill.
Here, Melissa Wallum.
Thank you. J. Sarah.
I'm here.
Okay. Juana Maria.
Hi, Linda here from Juana Maria.
Thank you. Lemon Grove. Let's go with Pierpont.
I'm here. Sorry, it took me a while to find the unmute button.
No problem. No problem for Lemon Grove. Okay. Pierpont.
Good morning. Good morning. Kim here from Pierpont. Hello.
Thank you. Poinsettia. Portola.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go get you ready. Okay.
Good morning. It's Geraldine from Portola.
Thank you. Sunset. And a couple more schools. Ventura High. And Will Rogers.
Good morning. This is Rachel from Will Rogers.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and I'm Nick Vlahos. I am the Interim Deputy Director of Special Education. Let's see. Did we miss anybody here?
Carrie with Cabrillo. I just got on.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Tammy, can you introduce yourself? I know a lot of people in here know you.
Hi, I'm Tammy Cohn. I am the Autism Program Specialist for the district. Nice to see everyone.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, the first thing up is what we're going to do is we'll be going over a quick slideshow about Autism Spectrum Disorder Program from Tammy Cohen. And then I will also do an overview of our paraprofessionals and additional adult support, and then we'll go from there. So, Ms. Cohen, if you want to share your screen.
All right.
And we'll go from there. Yep.
All right. Can you see my screen?
We can.
All right. So I know some of you guys have heard this when we did it originally, but there's a lot of people that have, maybe watching that, don't know about this program. So some of the stuff you may have heard before. So in Ventura Unified, let me get to this. Whoops. We have the Autism Spectrum Disorder Special Day Class Program. It's a highly specialized research-based program. It's designed to address the needs of students in TK through high school with mild and moderate learning challenges associated with autism. Our program uses a comprehensive planning and service delivery approach. We specifically address the language, the social communication, behavioral, sensory, academic, social skills needs that are often associated with autism. Students in our program can progress to less restrictive settings, and that's always our goal, to increase that inclusion, to increase that mainstreaming. Once they acquire and can independently use some of those skills that we're working on and benefit from that inclusion time. Our work with students, we prioritize the development of self-regulation, self-management skills in order to help them with their perspective taking, learning, relationship skills that will be leading to college, career, community access, and just being those wonderful adults that we know they are. So who are our typical students that require this level of support? Because there's a lot of kids out there in our district that have qualified under autism, but don't need this level of support and are able to manage with the strategies and supports in the gen ed education setting, or just with some other minor supports. But students in our program must meet eligibility as a special education student and must have an eligibility to autism. Many of our students have positive behavior intervention plans or comprehensive behavior intervention plans that have been developed and implemented. Social, emotional, pragmatic communication goals that have been developed and implemented, and data has been collected on this in the less restrictive settings to show that they are needing this higher level of support to obtain these skills in the goals. We have two different tracks in Ventura. So we have a more mild track, which is Poinsettia, Balboa, Buena. Students in that track must be able to access grade level curriculums with slight accommodations. Many of those students have the ability to do those academics. Cognitively, they're really strong, but there's other challenges that get in the way of them being able to access that curriculum in the gen ed setting without these supports. The second track is at Mound, and that's more moderate need. And those students are still being exposed to gen ed curriculum, but we're modifying that curriculum even more. Those accommodations are more intense to allow those kids to access, but it's still the gen ed curriculum. Both of these tracks are diploma track. And then the placement in these programs comes from a recommendation from the student's homeschool's IEP team. And a lot of times I'm involved in that process and helping to collaborate with the team. So where are our classes now? At elementary, we have classes at Poinsettia, and that's TK through 5th. And there's 3 classes there. We have classes at Mound Elementary, and that's TK through 5th too. And right now there's 3 classes. And I'm very excited because this is the first year at Mound that I have 5th graders. So next year we are building the middle school program for that track. And I'm in the process of doing that right now. And so it's very exciting because that's a little bit newer of a program than Poinsettia, but my guys are finally getting to that middle school. So it's just kind of exciting to see them from kindergarten now getting to that place where, you know, we're dealing with some different things and they're kind of getting older. And it's just an exciting place to be. Right now, we have classes at Balboa Middle School, and that's for the ASD kind of 1 or that mild track that comes from Poinsettia. And we have classes there that support students 6th grade to 8th grade. We have 2 specific ASD classrooms, but our kids also join other classrooms, and their day looks like a typical middle school kid day where they are moving around and they're getting electives and they're going to PE. They're not self-contained. They are moving around. And then at high school right now, I have classes at Buena. Right now it's 9th through 11th, but next year I'll be adding a 12th grade. And so that'll complete that track from TK to 12. And just like at Balboa, those kids are moving around too. They're not in a self-contained program. They're not staying with one teacher. They're having access to the gen ed. We're getting them into BARC, which is kind of this elective. They're taking electives. I have a student who's on the swim team. So it's very exciting to see just where these guys have come from. And some of these guys I've known since kinder. So it's just kind of, they all have a special place in my heart. Okay, hold on. Okay, so our numbers at each of our sites. We try to keep our classes at a place where that instruction and that support is going to be productive and effective. And if the classes get too big, then that kind of then starts going down. So at Poinsettia right now, in my TK to first class, I have 7 students. My 2nd to 3rd, I have 10. And my 4th and 5th, I have 13. At Mound, it's kind of 9, 9, and 8. At Balboa in 6, I have 4. I think it's 5 now, though. And in 7th, I have 5. And 8th, I have 8. At Buena in 9th, I have 9 students. In 10th, I have 6. And in 11th, I have 6. And honestly, right now, when I wrote this slideshow, these numbers, I think, have changed since then. Kids are always moving in, and there's lots of movement happening between other programs and also kids that have been in the gen ed setting. So these numbers never stay the same way that I start a year. It always is different. And then right now, we're in the process of working through some preschool to kinder transitions. And so those numbers are going to be, changing the way that my classes look. So our ASD special day class programs, we have a wide range of teaching modalities and supports and adaptions that we bring in, and they're evidence-based. These are strategies and supports that have been data supported to be effective to use with autistic students, and it's a wide range. And not all of these are used for every student. Each student is individual. We have to take a look at that kid's needs and create a program and implement the supports that are going to meet those kids' needs. So when you look at this list, it's not that this is all being done all the time with every student. Each student's plan is individual, and we look at them like they're their own child. Obviously we have some class-wide supports that are embedded into the program that we implement and deliver to all students, but then even their plans get more specialized depending on where they are. And you start in a place with one kid in the beginning of the year, and kids are constantly changing. So we have to change with that kid. So the supports and accommodations that we put in place are changing sometimes during the year. So who supports our students? Because it takes a team. It takes a village. It's not just one person. And even though you may not see all these people at an IEP meeting, all these people are supporting your student. It can't happen if we don't have the collaboration. And it's not just here, but it's, that first peer person I say, our parents, because you are our most important members of the team. And without your support and without that collaboration with you guys, nothing we do at school makes sense. It doesn't make a difference. We have to have that bridge between home and school and have that relationship. So what we're doing and what you're doing matches, and we're working together to truly get the best out of the supports we're both putting in place in our own setting to really help our student. But as you can see, I go all the way down to the bus driver, everybody. We all are a part of our kids' team. And that's it.
Thank you for sharing that. I would like to say that I started this meeting off by saying I believe it's the April SEDAC. It's not the April SEDAC. Maybe I'm looking forward to spring break or whatever it may be. It's the March SEDAC. So anyway, Tammy, thank you so much for presenting that overview of our ASD program. Does anybody have any questions for Tammy? Questions or comments? Let's see.
I do.
Was that Linda or okay,
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, Tammy, you and I spoke very briefly
Yes.
a couple of months ago. So how do I, because my child has been diagnosed with autism by a doctor, and I know that there are other families in my position. How do we get you involved in our child's IEP when the school psychologist is denying the request to have you there?
That's a good question. Because I don't just come to IEP meetings for kids at my school. I get thrown all over. Right now, I'm really involved in the EIC and doing, assessments and helping teens all over. I think if you guys want to reach out to me, obviously the first place you should start is with your team. That is your direct contact to getting support in the school setting. But, I think if you can talk to them and really let them know that you would like my involvement as a collaborative, consultative type of manner where I'm just working to help with the ASD supports and strategies, you guys are always more welcome to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help with some of the communication. But the first place would be going to your school team and kind of just explaining maybe why you'd want me involved. And, even saying that you saw this, this information and I presented and you felt that, maybe some of this information that I can bring to the team would be helpful to help your student. So I would suggest, again, strongly going to your school team because they are your first, direct contact. But I'm also more than happy if you guys reach out to me. I'm pretty responsive with my emails and my phone calls. Usually it's been a little busy this week, but usually I have kind of a 24-hour rule that I try to get back to parents when they reach out to me.
Well, I've sent in 3 separate requests, and all 3 have been denied by the school psychologist.
Okay.
So I really love what I heard from you. I think that there are a lot of kids that are kind of in that more mild area that fall into a lot of what you're explaining, and they're kind of getting lost in the cracks. They're being put into a more moderate.
Oh, you muted. Hi.
Supposed to be, so I will go ahead. I do happen to have an extended IEP today, which was requested for you to be there. And we'll go ahead and talk with them about what I heard you talking about today, and we can approach it a little bit differently after this.
Okay. I'm writing your name down just so I can remember to reach out.
I do.
Perfect.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of hands up, but I know, Michelle, you unmuted first. So did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jet, my daughter, who's now, she's going to be a senior next year. She started off at Poinsettia and Tammy was there. And hi.
I can't believe that, Michelle. Like when I see her at Buena, I'm just like, oh my God.
I know. And Tammy was just instrumental in our process at Poinsettia. And I agree that the support team at your individual school is pretty paramount to driving service. And even now, like she's in 11th grade, next year, she only has 2 actual classes. All the rest are electives. And she is in different clubs. She is exchanging classes, and she's more on the moderate side of autism. So this was something that was kind of tricky to navigate. We weren't even sure if this was going to happen, but here we are. We're going to move into her senior year, and she's going to be taking like film and art class and just anything she wants to do. And she even had the option not to even come for a full days. But point is that Tammy was absolutely amazing. And every time we see her, we just get those warm and fuzzies of throwback Poinsettia and all of her support. So, but I do agree that really enmeshing yourself in your school's team and who those people are as best you can is the best way to go. So that was it. That was my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, it's crazy when I see your other daughter, because I remember her as a preschooler, and it's just crazy to see where these kids are and how big they've gotten. And They're just adults, some of them. They walk by me and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't take it.
I know. And it's really fun. So Jet, my daughter, she's 5'9.5", wears a size 11 shoe. So imagine seeing, a tall, tow-headed blonde woman running around and talking to herself and catching butterflies in the ether. It's really, it's amazing. It's awesome. But yeah, that was it. That was all I was going to say.
Thank you. I want to, before we continue, I see somebody on here that's named me. I'm trying to figure out who that is. Let's see. Or I'm probably going to put you back in the waiting room and you can respond. Are you there, me? Okay. Let me put back in the waiting room. All right, so we're going to move on. Let's go with Leslie, please.
Hello there, Tammy.
Hi, Leslie.
It's so good to see you. And oh my gosh, I have the same things to say. And you know what it makes me think is between the two comments here. So we've got Linda and then we've got the poinsettia. And I'm like, so I can see both, because what it is that we were so lucky and so fortunate to have you there, because it was completely instrumental in where we are today. But I will say this, that, and I know you told me once when we were going to Balboa, you're not going to lose me. And I said, okay, that's reassuring. But when I can't even imagine being someone who didn't have you, who didn't have, and I really call it a liaison. It's someone who gets autism, who gets, who they are and understand, the capabilities. And let's talk about, yes, I'm open to, I was always pushing to, I want this, let's do more. And you loved it and you understood it and you encouraged it and you embraced it. You didn't go against, like you said, the parents are, we are part of the team, but you start to feel like you are pushed out of the team a little bit as they get older. And I think that, and I was just telling a parent this the other day, that I think that as our kid gets older, there's this expectation of all general ed kids where they kind of can function on their own in general. And, they learn how to do everything on their own. They walk into middle school, they know where to go, they know what to do. But we have to remember that our kids are not there yet. And so I feel like there really needs to be more of you for that going into the middle school setting, into the high school setting. If they never had you, I can't even imagine where I would have been today. I can't even imagine, I probably would have had a lot more battles in my time in elementary or anywhere else. But I had a liaison, and I feel like it's so important to push for everyone else who doesn't have that to get something like that, because they are missing out. And as we go into middle school, it's already hard as it is, but to not have somebody who understands where we stand and understands that we have good input, it's really, really, it's uncomfortable. It's hard. It's difficult. It's scary. So we need more of a liaison for the autism programs as these kids move into middle school, and you can't be everywhere. So, I just think that it's a cross between both comments, and that, there does need to be a liaison, I think, for every school setting. School psychologist deals with everybody, but we need somebody who is like you for every school setting, especially in middle school and high school.
I agree. Middle school and high school, the difficulties, the challenges that our kids face, the social stresses that come at them, and being able to navigate that, it's totally different than at elementary. And we are thinking about that, and we are looking at what we can do to help those students more as they mature, as they get to that place where, talking about, what color they are and what superhero they are just isn't enough, So we are thinking about that support in middle school. We are. And I love you, Leslie and Joseph. It's so crazy when I see him and he's getting like peach fuzz, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But he is doing great. So I'll tell you that.
I know.
Thank you. I'm going to let me, I don't know. I wasn't able to message you in there. Are you here? I'm going to give you one more shot here to let me know who you are. Okay. Let me. All right. We have. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate this input. We have a few other hands up, and then we'll have to move on in a minute, but not a problem. I really appreciate this feedback. Melissa.
Thanks. Hi, Tammy. For context, I have a senior right now at Foothill, and she's actually graduating and going to college away from home next year.
Oh,
and I never thought this would happen.
Oh,
so
that's such a hard place.
It's pretty fantastic.
That mom hard.
It's fantastic. We're really thrilled anyway. And I didn't think we'd be here. So props to our schools for helping us get there. But I would say that probably looking back, the most challenging years were truly those transition years from, especially the 5th grade to 6th, and then the 8th to 9th. And we missed out on these programs, obviously, but we worked through everything. But I'd love for you to speak to how you approach those transition years a little bit more in detail.
So, and it's not just that 5th to 6th and that 8th to 9th. You have that like preschool to kinder too, which is just such a hard time for parents to be. I think really building that rapport and that collaboration and listening to parents, being there for them, giving them the FaceTime, letting them know what their options are if they have a question so they don't feel like they have to keep it in and hold it until that one IEP that happens every year. I think just communicating and letting parents know that we're here and we're willing to listen to you. We're willing to have you come visit, come sit in our class and see what it looks like, be a part of that, because we don't want you just to be there for drop off and pick off. And when we have conferences in that one IEP, you need to be there on a daily basis. We want your presence. We want your, I don't sit in IEP meetings where parents come at me with concerns and challenges and maybe, some emotions. I don't see that as a bad thing. I want you guys to advocate for your kids. They need you. And I get worried when I don't see a parent advocating. And I feel like you need to advocate just as strongly as I need to advocate, because once they step foot into our district, they're my kid too. And my kids at home know when I talk about my kids, I have my kids and I have my kids. And they're our kids. So we have to just be as strong of an advocate as you guys are too. Sometimes parents don't know how to be that advocate, and we have to tell them and show them and explain. But I think by communicating and making that transition not be as scary, visiting the next school, talking about it, having conversations, I think that's the best way to kind of break down some of those walls and barriers, because out of those conversations come amazing things. But if you never have those conversations and we never get in that place where we're going kind of back and forth, my feeling, your feeling, we're never going to move past this and really continue to focus on what the goal is the child, and really what we can do to make it just the most amazing opportunity and experience for them. So really it's the communication and the rapport, and just knowing that I'm here for you and you need to be here for me too, because there's times I'm going to ask you something, and just being that face that they know they can email and come to, and I'm always going to be here, and the team's always going to be here for them too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, we have 3 more, and then we'll move on. So, Suelynn.
Yes, thank you so much. Great information and great insight. And I think it's good that obviously you're presenting and kind of having that dialogue. And I'm glad to hear the success stories with some of the parents here. But I think, going back to the other side of it is that not all parents have those same success stories. And I think, cloning you, I think, is greatly needed, which I'm hoping there is a thought process in that, and hopefully adding additional bodies to help across the schools, because I think this is what's happening, because it is designated, Poinsettia is a school that is designated for autism and the support is there. But, as an incoming parent, when you're fresh, into the school district, you don't know any of this. So you really rely on your school site to be your support team. And going back to, I think it was, who was it? The parent that just earlier commented, that she has been communicating, Linda, she's been communicating this to her support team. She's been asking, and I don't think that is being mirrored across all schools. in our district. And I think this is an equity issue that we really need to look at and address as a special education department, and really look at, a lot of parents are asking the right questions, and they're asking these right questions to the team, and they're collaboratively working with the team, but the team is not sharing this information. And as a parent, you're relying on the experts and the team to give you this feedback that perhaps there's a program that's more beneficial for your child. And most of the time you end up finding it out after fact. So I do think there's a concern here where, the district does need to pay some attention to the equity access to these services, and, across all schools, not just Poinsettia, and have some kind of pipeline where if there's a student that is not in Poinsettia, that a parent can be informed of that services, or just figuring that out. Linda's point, I have the same exact situation. We kept on talking, and that was never shared, or that insight. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm a pretty strong advocate for my child. But I think we do need to look at that as a district and provide equitable access to all students, and look at it truly. I feel like when we come to these meetings, to completely be honest, I'm liking that we have the opportunity to come to the platform, but I also want to make sure that we're just not talking about it, that there's actually actions happening in our district, that it's not just, the conversation here and then it ends. Like, we really need to be seeing actionable items that are happening across our school sites.
I agree. It's hard. Yes, we have these specific sites with these specific programs, but like I said, across the district, we have a lot of autistic students that are at different levels of support. And I think that kind of, maybe I need to, have a discussion with some of these teams and kind of like explain more maybe what I can offer to other sites, because even though you may have qualified under eligibility, Poinsettia may not be the exact program for you. Mound may not be the exact program. There may be other factors coming into play that are needing to be supported. And that's why there are these different programs, because we have to look at these different needs no matter what the eligibility is. I try to look at the needs and not just the eligibility, because that's really what's driving where and how we support a student. But, I do think that this is something that we can discuss as a district and as a department, and making sure that parents have access to these supports and services no matter what program they're at. Because again, there's a lot of wonderful strategies and supports that can be put in place to help autistic students that are in the gen ed, that are in the mild to mod, that are in the mod to severe, that are in the ASD program. And I want to be able to allow them to have access. And I think sometimes just a little beginning discussion with these teams allows them to understand what kind of supports and resources are out there to help them and the students and parents.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm just talking about my experience, and I don't know if everybody, I'm just assuming, but I've been talking to other parents also. I've been involved with my daughter's 12. So I've been talking to a lot of parents in our community, and I hear the same thing. So I think it's a matter of really cross internally educating the staff that's in these roles, right? Like cross-educating the staff that's in these roles, because we as parents rely on these experts, really. I mean, you guys are the experts in this subject matter, to really provide the resources and share those resources, versus us trying to really, I feel like we're really searching until something happens where it gets shared. But I feel like we rely on your expertise, and I think some kind of cross training or cross awareness, or maybe it is happening, but it's not being shared with the parents or during those IEP meetings. I can tell you that until years after the fact.
Well, thank you for providing that information, Suelynn. And yeah, we are continuing to work on those communication systems. Let's go to Jenna and then Dora. And then after that, we're going to have to move on to our second presentation. Thank you for all the input everybody's providing. Thank you, Suelynn.
Hi, Tammy. I'll make mine kind of quick. I don't know if it's redundant. I have a son at Elmhurst, and we just had our triannual. He was changed his diagnosis was changed to autism, and we're now from SPED, mod severe, to he went into gen ed. I don't know how we missed you or how you haven't been added to our IEP, but I just wanted to understand how to get you on our team. I think I missed that part, and that was really my only question.
So I think, again, what I said is kind of starting that communication with your site team, explaining, maybe the supports you're looking for and maybe why someone like myself could be helpful coming in and collaborating with the team. Is your son still at Elmhurst?
Yeah, we stayed at Elmhurst just because he's going into 5th grade.
Okay. I'm taking notes as you guys are talking. That's why I may look away because I'm writing down names and taking notes. I think that I'd like to maybe have a conversation with the psychologists and kind of just, again, kind of go over the way I can support parents and families and teams in this role. Because again, it's not that I'm just a program specialist. I kind of wear a lot of different hats. I'm also the autism specialist. So, I think I need to kind of define these roles and how I can support teams and maybe how they can access some of the consultation and collaboration we can do together. But that's kind of, I think, where I'm going to start. So I would say you guys should start talking to your site team, and I'm going to see who I can talk to try to make this maybe an easier process to allowing me to come in and help the teams with the supports in that child setting and how we can make that plan the very best plan that meets their needs.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Dora.
Mine's going to be really quick too. Hi, Tammy.
Hi.
Suelynn said it way better than I could. My experience with my son has not been happy-go-lucky, and my husband and I truly, advocate for him as well as his little classmates. Like that group of those group of kids that have gone with him. We're pretty loud. Sometimes talking to your team isn't enough. It took me just this last time when I emailed you, you called me like right away. It was crazy. And then she called me like on a Friday, like at 6, like it's crazy. And you're so nice. And an answer that I could have gotten like 2-3 weeks prior, it was just, they were running circles around me until like, well, I think this person can help you. So I think, yeah, like educating everybody, but at the end of the day, like they are educated people that got these jobs, and then they should know, right? We've been asking like for years, if he has autism, maybe, he should be in a different program or what's there. And then you never really get straight answers. And then now we're going into high school, and I still don't know like what that even looks like, right? We aren't allowed to go look at different programs. We get told we don't let parents shop for a program. We don't let parents shop for schools. That's what my husband and I were told. And it's like, well, we do because we have school of choice. But anyways, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you. I'm really, really happy that all of your families love you. I wish our experience was that way, but I hope it'll get better as time goes on. But I think number one is the person in charge. Like it's you. It's all about how open they are with their communication and their personality. And I don't think that it's like that across the board, because we always get like shut down and they don't return your calls. And I get it, but I appreciate you. And I only had that one phone call with you.
Well, it was awesome meeting you. And again, your husband still has like the coolest car. I told him that you said I can have it. And it was very nice meeting to you. And I was glad I was able to be of help. And again, you can always reach out to me in the future if you need to, talk anymore.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that input. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our second section of presentation, which will be me. I'm going to share. And again, Tammy, thank you so much for your presentation. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. Maybe there's some other questions you can help me field if need be. So let me share my screen, view, slideshow. And then we'll have time to talk about, if you guys have questions about it's just going to be a brief overview of how our paraprofessionals are utilized. And after that, I will do what I can to answer some more questions about that. So again, this is an overview of special education services for our paraprofessionals or paraeducators. It's an interchangeable saying, but yes, parapros. So let me read this. Here we go. So related services means transportation and such developmental, corrective, and other supportive services as are required to assist a child with a disability to benefit from their special education program. This can also include the services of a paraprofessional support any identified medical, behavioral, or other needs. As with all special education services, these determinations are made through the analysis of assessment data on an individual level in order to continue to observe and facilitate the least restrictive environment. So here's a couple little tidbits about our paraprofessionals. A paraprofessional is an individual who is able to support the classroom and or support a specific student. So we have some paraeducators that may be supporting a specific student, but can also be utilized at the same time to help others in the classroom. It just depends on the situation, the IEP, and the types of services needed for the students. And the types of supports could be medical, safety, behavior supporting, and behavior intervention planning. So that's something we should think about. And then obviously there's additional reasons why we may need paraeducator in the room. So we do have our system for which we look at to determine the need for a paraprofessional. It's called the Special Circumstances Educational Support steps that we take. The continuum of supports for students. There must be a clear determination that the students' needs are so great that they need extra adult assistance. Students still may need support. However, we must recognize that we are taking a step away from independence and potentially risking prompt dependence and learned helplessness over the long term. So if we're not careful with our para support, that's why we're very sensitive to what's going on with our students, because when you do add that type of support, the level of support, we have to be very careful with the level of independence developed with the child. Studies have indicated that unintended consequences can result from the utilization of one-on-one adults, including overdependence, increase of anxiety, stigmatization, and depression. The continuum of supports for student considerations, classroom rules and routines and schedules, classroom universal strategies, the classroom reinforcement plan. So is there positive behavior supports within the classroom setting? And again, on an individual level, we'll be looking at the positive behavior support plan, social, emotional, sensory, and academic supports, and IEP goals. So there's a lot of considerations prior to actually conducting our evaluation on the student. So these are the other things that we're looking at. Is there a behavior intervention plan in place? Is it being implemented with fidelity? So is it being implemented in a way that we're doing the best with the plan? We're doing what the plan says. Those are considerations. Does the BIP address the behaviors of concern? So sometimes we need to update those plans. And have strategies been tried for a sufficient amount of time? So sometimes when we put a behavior plan in place, it takes time. It might take 4 to 6 weeks to see if a behavior plan is going to be effective or if we need to make adjustments. And have, what other resources do we have on the site that have been identified? So extra adult assistance. Why do we need to do all these steps? So extra adult assistance creates a more restrictive setting. Without trying less intrusive interventions, we cannot determine whether there is a true need for extra adult assistance. So we want to try other types of interventions prior to looking and considering an extra adult. I mean, if a child needs that, we're obviously going to provide it. But we like to see if there's other ways to support the children beforehand, because that does, again, when you add an extra adult, specifically for one student, that's a pretty intense support for that child. So planning and changing the environment while the assessment is being conducted can invalidate data obtained. So we want to make sure that wherever the student's at, that's where we're conducting the assessment on. So we're careful to not be changing placement of students, especially when we're conducting that assessment, because that's a big piece of what's considered when we're looking at the extra adult assistance and what the child may need. And we take a team approach. So in order to determine if a student requires extra adult assistance, a full 60-day evaluation takes place. Multiple sources of data are gathered, including but not limited to observational data, rubrics, environmental factors, and input. Results of the analysis of this data and input from parents and teachers are presented at the IEP in a report. So we do a full 60-day eval to really, I mean, if a child needs some level of support, we're going to make sure that we have things in place for the child, but to really determine if a student needs a one-on-one for like any length of time, we want to conduct that full assessment and use the team approach again, looking at all those sources of data, teacher input, parent input, observational data. We may look at rubrics and rating scales to help determine the need for that specific child. And again, we put all that in a report, and at an IEP meeting, we present those findings to the team. So we also want to add goals in a FADE plan, because when we add this type of support, we want to make it very clear that the goal is to get the support off, because again, our objective is to have the child become as independent as possible. So goals are clearly identified as being linked to extra adult support in the IEP and discussed with the FADE plan. FADE plan is presented that has objectives, measurable performance criterions for the student to meet, and how the assistance will be FADed once the criterion is met. And our main focus is to develop appropriate levels of independence, to help students reach their potential without adult assistance, and to teach children how to approach challenges and make progress. And just so you guys know, with our learning recovery funds, we have really looked at trainings for our paraeducators. And we've taken your input and have dedicated a portion, like I said, of learning recovery funds to apply towards these opportunities that you can see on the right here, which we just previously have been offered to paraeducators. And again, VUSD continues to work on a training plan in order to develop the skills of all of our paraeducators, parapros. So you can see a couple of the trainings we have recently provided for our para supports. Looking at trauma and building resilience in the classroom. And also something we're rolling out here is our Crisis Prevention Institute, the CPI verbal intervention training, which includes verbal de-escalation. It includes when, how are the students, students are in different stages, and depending on that stage is how we'll respond with those students. If they're being defensive, there's ways to respond to that. If they have severe levels of anxiety, there's ways to respond to that. So there's a lot of great trainings that we have been providing, and moving forward, we will be providing additional trainings. And that is my current overview. So I am here to take some questions. So we have some time here to talk about paras. So what are your questions? Ashley.
Hi. My question really is around, like, I know it's really difficult to hire right now, and it's just a really tough hiring market. But is it true that paraprofessionals can just be anyone? Obviously, they have to pass a background check, I hope. But can it be somebody who's never worked in special education before? And how what immediate training are they getting? Obviously, they have the teacher supervision, but they're there so that the kids have the supervision. So That's always been a little bit concerning to me, that it's just anyone. So what does that look like?
So we have it a introductory piece that's presented through our human resources department. And when we bring somebody on, though, Ashley, we are in a constant monitoring too, just with all the professionals that we have, paras, whoever it may be, to see where they fit and how they fit with the child or the classroom that they're in. So once they're in, we start building on the training. Again, there's an initial training process. We're working on that process, obviously, continuously. And people are coming in with a variety of skills. Some are highly trained, some have minimal training, and depending on their training levels, we'll kind of determine where we place them. And yes, it has been tough, as you said. So no, we're not just taking anybody in, but at the same time, we are, we're making sure that whoever comes in, that they fit in the setting that we have them in. So if we have a student that has really severe needs, and We want to make sure that we're matching them with somebody that has that proper level of training. It is possible that somebody might not have as much training that has to be there for like an interim amount of time. But the goal is obviously to make sure that all of our paras have the appropriate level of training and that we work on placing them based on the needs of the children and the class sites.
And then as far as like the general like pay range of paraeducators, I believe it's really not super competitive in terms of like other entry level jobs. I like cannot get over the sign that's like over off of River Park. That's from Panda Express, and it's like cookers starting at $18.25 an hour. I'm just like,
yeah,
like
wow.
That sign. It just like I can't drive past it without being shocked. And I know that like when it's entry level for paras, it's like truly entry level pay. And I'm sure that's a very complex process. Is that like just our district? Is that like do you guys have control over like what the starting range is for paraprofessionals, and has that been considered to raise that?
It's difficult to get in. I'll be honest, it is difficult to get it because it is a complex, process we have with our bargaining units and those types of things. So I probably can't really get into a lot of that right now, Ashley. But I will say that your input's been heard. Not just your, the community, people in this committee, and that's something we always consider with our paras for sure.
Yeah, it's complex. I mean, if
yes,
somebody a good paraprofessional can leave and go to Panda Express and make more money, that's a problem. And if we are only bringing in people who can't find a better paying job, that's also a problem. So I just wanted to, state that I think if we are bringing in people with no experience, which everyone is right now, every industry is hiring in ways that they never did. So I'm sure that school district is not doing that. I hope that they are truly like really getting a lot of training and a lot of supervision, because these are our kids and they often don't have their own voices. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that input, Ashley. I appreciate it. Carolyn.
I want to speak on Ashley's question about paraprofessionals. So when I got to the USD with my daughter, I was approached to be a paraprofessional for my daughter. And the only thing that was required was to take the CBEST. So that was in 2018. I don't know how it's changed, but I was approached by the district nurse saying I could be my daughter's paraprofessional and be with her in the classroom and make sure that she's safe with her diagnosis and the needs that she required medically. And I considered it at the time, but realized that if I became a paraprofessional for her, I would actually be doing a disservice, because not only is she dependent on me at home, she would be dependent on me in the classroom. So I declined that. But the only thing that was required at the time was just take your CBEST, pass that, then apply to be a sub or substitute para. So I don't know, at that time, there was no additional training. There was no additional information outside of that. But that was 2018, and I just wanted to share that.
All right. Well, thank you, Carolyn. I appreciate that information you provided. Jenna?
Hi. I don't really have anything as far as, what did I just do? I had a question about paraeducators being in the classroom. As far as I know, we're short-staffed. I know it's hard to hire. I myself have applied to be a paraeducator, and it's taken 2 months to get a phone call. And I know that the only requirement is that test if I don't have college credits. And like Ashley said, that is, very scary to think of, who's working with our kids, whatever. I have had some issues at our school site with, a couple of paraeducators. I witnessed some things happen with my child, and I fought back, that they weren't okay. And because we're so short-staffed, my agreement was, these paraeducators wouldn't be allowed to work with my child. 2 weeks later, come to find out they're working with my child. I know that we're short-staffed. My point being is now that my son has been switched over to like a gen ed setting, and he does have a one-on-one full-time, he has pulled one of the paraeducators from a class who only has 2 paraeducators and now is his one-on-one. So I don't know at what length of I know it's hard to hire people, and I get that. I'm just saying we're so short. It's really concerning. And I agree with Ashley as well. We need more incentive to get more people and more qualified people. And I just wanted to reiterate on that also that, as scary of a situation as I have had at this school, I'd hate for it to happen to anybody else. And I think they need to definitely look at that.
Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate that. Carolyn, did you have a follow-up, Carolyn? Your hand's still up, or were you? Let's see.
No, I don't know do I turn that off? Lower hand.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, there we go.
It's been a long time since I've been in the process.
No problem. No problem. Dora, go ahead.
I like two things. The first thing was that training that was offered during the conferences. Is that like an optional thing or a mandatory thing for them to go? Because those 2 trainings seemed to just kind of be geared for like the para 3s.
Got it.
That's how I read it.
At this point, I don't want to really get into all of the complexities of the requirements. But again, we do make sure when they're working with our children in our classes, we're doing everything we can to make sure that they are properly trained. And that's why we have continual professional development opportunities.
I get that. I'm just asking like for these the ones that you guys scheduled, the trainings for the conferences last week, were they mandatory
Oh, you're
or
asking
optional?
if they were optional. So we did them so they were optional. At that point. But again, so for example, the CPI training, it's optional, but we're working on some things with that, and it's on their. It's not like they can't continue to access that training either. So it takes an amount of time for them to do it. Oh, is somebody else's? That's probably because you're in the office.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So they can start. There's modules for that training too. So they have time to do it, I guess. So it's not like they all had to finish it at that moment. So there's different trainings. The ones that I showed right now were optional. That is correct.
Okay, sorry. And then my second thing is that I know we're very short staffed, but I don't know if everybody knows that you guys. I know that we're hiring outside, right? That programs have they're not paraeducators. I guess they're just like therapists, right? From like Addison and 360 and STAR. So why don't we pull for more resources from them if we're already hiring them at other sites? Because I know that's happening. So why wouldn't we hire more people?
Are you saying why for those agencies, why doesn't VUSD hire those people?
Because we already are hiring them, and if we're short staffed as far as permanent VUSD staff, so why wouldn't we hire more of the temporary staff while we recruit more permanent staff?
So there's some, again, I can't get into it, but there's some contractual things there for why that is. Not that it. Again, there's complexity surrounding that, right?
Yeah.
So we are recruiting. We recruit from, we're in active recruiting for our paras. So, but yeah, unfortunately, I can't really get into the complexities of it. Dora,
no, I understand that there's union stuff. I get that. But I also know that we're dealing, my background, I'm the office manager, right? My background is retail. I worked retail for 15 years and I did hiring and all that. But we sold shoes, right? We sold shoes and t-shirts and stuff. And so this is like a different thing. If we were short staff at the store, then we were short staff, we worked longer hours, but we just sold product. Right here we're hiring, and I get it. There's no applicants, but we're dealing with children. And we're dealing with children that have, either mild to very severe needs, that they need support, like in the restroom or even, for anything. So that's why I'm saying, like, I get all that. I understand all of that. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with children and what their needs are, and their needs can't wait. Right.
Yes. We take it very, very seriously.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Because so you're right.
Yeah. So, I always say, well, I'm not selling shoes anymore because that's what we used to do, sell shoes and t-shirts and stuff. But we're dealing with the livelihoods of kids, and it shouldn't be that difficult. If we're already outsourcing to get staff, and then that staff, a lot of time, that staff that you guys are outsourcing are way more qualified because a lot of them have to have already like college degrees for what they do, the ABA stuff. Then we should be outsourcing until we get the staff that we need. And like I think somebody said, I think Ashley said, like, we should be more competitive with our pay and pay them what they deserve because they're working with our children. They're our children. They're your children too, right? Until they graduate. Sorry, that's just
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dora. I appreciate that input. Jenna.
Sorry, I just had one other question as far as the para. We just had an IEP, and I was told in the IEP that regarding like one-on-ones, paraprofessionals, that the district is no longer at this time hiring full-time paras. Carrie Newley actually told me that anybody that had a full-time position and their child, their one-on-one or whatever was aging out or whatnot, that on March 15th, those people got a letter that their position was no longer available. If we're so desperate for paraprofessionals, why are we not retaining those people and moving them elsewhere if they're not one-on-ones? That's a pretty big concern for me as far as that.
Sorry, Jenna, I don't know exactly what was spoken in that meeting, but I know that if, and Carrie, for example, she has a lot of great information about her paras, and I wonder what exactly was said specifically in that. And again, we can talk about that offline to discuss that if you need
I was just, maybe I misunderstood that. That's what I heard.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go Kim, and then I think Carolyn actually does, and then Suelynn has her hand back up. Actually, let's go Kim, Suelynn, then Carolyn.
Okay. Actually, I misunderstood. Was that Jenna speaking? I just wanted to ask you, I had a question about that. So, because this is news to me, actually. So did you hear something that in March, parents with kids with full-time paras would be canceling that?
No. It was said to me that if a child had a one-on-one that was like aging out as far as they were done with high school or whatever, and they had a one-on-one, that position was not being extended.
Oh, they were not continuing their.
Yeah, and I think you may have misunderstood, Jenna, because to your point, we're trying to retain every para we have. So let me say it like this, and I'll let you go, Kim. Let me say it like this. We want to meet the needs of all of our students, right? So whatever that requirement is, that's the staff we try to bring on for those students. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for you, actually,
for sure.
Over everything we've been talking about. Can I ask what percentage of the recovery funds are going to para training?
Well, we have, and I'm going to go over I'll go over the LR funds actually a little bit, if we have time, a little bit later.
Okay.
I don't have specific percentages, but I could tell you that the main areas that we're dedicating to, but we are going to have a lot of training opportunities for sure. So that's a good question.
Okay. And here's a couple other follow-up questions about what we've been discussing already is, can a parent be a para, or is that specific depending on the individual?
Do you mean like what Karen was saying, like to your own child?
Yes, to their own child.
That's something you would have to discuss with HR. I don't think we really have parents that are their own children's paras right now in our district, but that's something that can be discussed with HR. Okay. We typically, as Kim said, or as Carolyn was saying, that would be even more challenging to have a parent with their own child. So we We try to stay away from that for sure.
Sure. And then one other thing was just in discussing what we're talking about, keeping paras and trying to be efficient. When I just have a suggestion, and I think I've seen this so many times, and moving forward, what would be efficient and smart would be to, when a child has a para that's working for that child and the school's happy and the parents happy, you really should be keeping that para with the child for as long as that, it's on their IEP. Meaning every new year, there doesn't need to be a new person coming in, because that's a detriment to our kids. It takes a lot of time for them to transition when there's someone new, especially when you have a para that's happy in their position, a child that's happy with the para. And I just think this is a great time for that to be implemented, seeing as we're losing para staff. And so when you already have a situation that's working, to stay efficient for everybody involved, you should keep that para with the child.
And I do understand that concern. It is a service, right? It's not a specific person when we do have those paras, but I do appreciate that concern and what you're asking. And there are often a lot of variables associated with that, depending on, again, like what school they're at and those types of things. So we just couldn't guarantee that it's going to be the same person. We do like to have as much consistency as possible.
What's the philosophy? Not even with paras, but it happens with OTs, it happens with school psychologists. What's the philosophy behind that? Because it seems to me like there's a transition period for anyone new to a school and anyone new to a child that's already struggling. And we've already been through a couple of years of COVID. So we're already behind. And so my suggestion is, and maybe a few mamas can chime in, but wouldn't that sound smart, business-wise, efficient, to keep somebody in their position, therefore not, having to backtrack and retrain and reassess, and then, then everybody's starting all over again. The child, the para, the school, the parent.
I understand. Consistency is important. I agree. Consistency is important, but there's a lot of factors that are out of our hands sometimes too, depending on schedules. Depending on, there's a lot of complexities in regards to what adult is with which student. So that's why it's very difficult to get in the weeds on it. I agree that consistency matters. I'm not going to I think we can all agree on that, Kim. I appreciate that input. And we try, our goal is to have consistency at some level with our students. And I understand even with different providers like our OTs and our SLPs, but again, with staffing, it is a quite challenging puzzle piece, right? Puzzles to put together. So that's, but at the same time, our students are moving on from year to year. They have new teachers also, right? So sometimes it's good to have, I'm not saying every time, but have different providers come in too, to work with students. So I guess on an individual and as a whole, there's a lot of different factors to consider. And I think what you're saying is something that also does need to be considered. So thank you.
Just wanted to put it out there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suelynn.
Yes, sir. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge, I know it's not an easy task to answer all of our questions and entertain everything. And I know it's not an easy task to, lead special education as well. I know it's a difficult role, with limited funds as well at the same time. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, and, I've been part of this committee since when it started, and I like the information that you guys are sharing. It's great. I like the reports of like every month we have something new, like a new insight to what the district has to offer to our students. But one of the things I keep on finding every time we connect and we meet, and I think it's a bit disconnect, all these concerns that we bring up and everything that we come to address. I feel like there's no follow through and follow up. It's being shared. Like perhaps it would be great to see some kind of actionable item where some of these comments that we make or things that we're addressing during these meetings, that there is an actual feedback, maybe the next following meeting that we meet, saying, this is what we heard you, this is kind of what we're looking, this is what we're exploring. For example, like the communication aspect that I continue to bring up all the time. We were just hearing, we're working on it. But like, what is an actual, like actual feedback, actual details of more of a response than, thanking us and great, which is great. That's, we want to, this is why we're all part of this committee, because we want to collaborate and work with the district. But at the same time, I'm honestly feeling like it's, again, those conversations happen and then there's no follow through of like, we hear you, here's kind of what's happening, here's kind of what we're trying to take action on, which is great to hear the programs, but I actually want to hear what the district itself is doing with all these comments that we're making, and what is the district leadership team, and providing some kind of either Gantt chart or framework of what you guys are doing for the committee to really have some tangible conversation that we continue to have dialogues on these, right? Like, let's say we talked about Paraeducator. Okay, then next time we're going to say the district's doing this, and it may not be within a month, things take longer than that. But at some kind of, I feel like we throw up a lot of ideas and comments and then nothing follow through happens. And then to me, this committee just becomes like a committee that we're just venting.
For example, the communication piece, I believe an email has been sent out now, like at all sites, we're sending all that information out. So now people can contact. That's why we got, with the communication, we needed to get all of your contact information so parents and you can have contact through that. Right. So that's something we've followed up on, and we listen to everything you guys are saying, and we are working in the background on a lot of these things. You've talked about paras and training, and we are dedicating some of the learning recovery funds to that training, right? So I do think you're right. Sometimes
I think it's more of an update, Nick, like an update, right? Like you guys, it's great. You guys are showcasing your programs, which I love. Like, I think that's a great part. We need to be informed and we continue to be ambassadors, like now I know, there's this program. I tell parents that are in this situation. I'm like, hey, did you know about this? Which is great. But I think what a big part that's missing in this committee, and it has been missing since the beginning, is then the district staff, like you or, Marcus or whoever's part of the special education committee, actually following up with us on some of these things and reporting to us and saying, I know you don't you don't report to us, but at least we're part of your committee, and saying, hey, we hear you. This is kind of what we're doing here, or this is what we're trying to do, or here's where we're at. Like,
I understand.
Yeah, that's what's really missing here. And I think that's really would be crucially important to continue having those really strong collaboration. And it would actually probably help the district because then parents are like, wow, like we can kind of see things are moving and the needle's moving.
Yes.
But, sharing programs is great, but not sharing what you guys are actually doing more internally in terms of our concerns to me, at least, it doesn't give me that trust that I kind of, because I've been part of it since the beginning, and I feel like we keep on talking about it, and you guys know what you're doing internally, which is great. And you can't share everything, which I understand. There's some, but it would be great. Some kind of, even on a quarterly basis, like reporting, like, hey, this is what we worked on. We hear you. This is what we hear, and here's what you were trying to do.
Well, thank you for that input, Suelynn. And I have some basic updates I'm going to go over in a little bit here. But I do, again, appreciate that input. Let's move on to Geraldine.
Hi, thanks. Just to kind of compound what everyone else has been saying already, in terms of the communication, and, I think that was great because we were all saying, how are we supposed to communicate this to the other, SPED families at our schools? And it's like, okay, we'll share information. Well, we as parents, we're always transitioning. We as committee members will always be transitioning when our kids age out to another school, or in my case, I'm moving. Like, why did we not? I mean, I feel like in some things, like for the communication piece, great, we sent out an email and now you're going to share our emails. But really, it should have been, let's set up an email for each school site, because that parent will eventually change, because there's always going to be transition. We're not here forever. I mean, even if we just joined, I was only here for 3 years, and now I'm moving. So now we have to change that. We have to change my email for our school site. That makes no sense. It really should have just been like, let's create an email for each school site. When the new person comes in, then it transitions seamlessly. So if there's anything left over from when I was the site person, then the next person can pick it up. I mean, it's a lot of like common sense things like that. The whole para thing and the hiring and what is required for our parents to sit with our children. I mean, the only difference separating them from an Uber driver is a panel interview and that test. And if they do have an education credit, it could have been an underwater basket weaving, and they still would have fulfilled that federal requirement for them to interview to be in that para spot. So it is frustrating. I mean, and then we're hearing, we evaluate the student's needs and what the para's background is. Well, my para had never been with an elementary child. His background was completely in high school. So when he first sat down with my child, a one-on-one as his one-on-one para, my child was taking walks 45% of the day because he was trying to be gentle, because how you help a high school student versus how you help an elementary child is completely different. So, I mean, and to follow up what Suelynn is saying is like, we're in this committee, and I completely understand that you have programming because we're trying to share this information with other families who are not on the committee. But now we're talking about paras very briefly, and it's not because we've been wanting to talk about it. It's because that's when it was scheduled to be talked about. We haven't heard about any updates on anything that we're talking about. And so, yes, this now becomes a place where when we do have a moment to speak, it's where we're sharing some victories, but a lot of time it's where we're sharing a lot of places where we need to have improvement. And the whole being integrated into your school's community, well, it's kind of hard in COVID when some school sites, their principals won't let anyone on campus, not even their PTO. And you shouldn't have to join the PTO to be able to advocate for your child if that's what they need. So I guess, there are a lot of complexities and there are a lot of things that you can't share with us, which makes sense because it doesn't necessarily help us, but to at least address the things that we have brought up prior, I mean, that seems pretty basic. We give you feedback, we need to get it back, and not just the, I guess, politically correct response. We want to hear true feedback on what we've been talking about since day one, and not on the programming that you provided to us, but the feedback and the concerns that we brought to you. So then I guess if it's so complex and we keep bringing up issues that that affect our children, then I guess we need to find out where we should be making noise, because at this point, SEDAC's not where we're supposed to be making noise. We need to be putting pressure somewhere else. And I guess where is that somewhere else?
Thank you for that input, Geraldine. We are, again, I know things don't move as quickly as we'd like sometimes. And again, I think we're doing what we can to bring you updates when we can. And we take everything serious. I take every comment you're saying serious. So we appreciate that.
Nick, that's not happening. I'm just like, I know that you're listening. Yes. I know you're listening, Nick. And I understand that. And again, I know it's a hard world what you're doing. I know you're into them. I get that. But this committee has been now for how long been running?
A few years.
And I know it was during COVID and I know it's intensity, but I think what we're trying to say, like, if there's things happening internally that you guys are doing and moving, it needs to be shared. I mean, and you can't share everything, but you could share the big picture thinking. You guys are doing things and it feels like that is not being heard in terms of like what this committee is for. Like, because I see honestly this committee now like a checklist on the checklist for the district. Like, because we've given it time and I've given suggestions, and it's like, yes, the communication aspect, that part was done. And I know it was during COVID and I know it was difficult. But I also feel like there's other things that I know that, we know staff, like I know parents, I know staff that works at the district. I hear things, I see things, and it's part of it. I feel like there needs to be some kind of, communicative responsibility of what we're sharing and what we're explaining as a committee, that the district then comes back through, follows through, and then shares with us. And I know you can't disclose everything, but there is questions that we're asking that I feel like don't go answered. And we're being told to go back to the school sites and have those communications. And we do that. And then we go back to the school site, and the school site's like, well, we're just getting that circle. And I think it's time now to really have that conversation. And I don't know if we need to reach out to more individuals at the district, which, I will. But it's like a point now that we really need to start having those strong conversations. following up of like, okay, we made the suggestion, then where are we at? Like the district staff meet and you guys said, you know what, we hear you and this is kind of what we thought through it and this is kind of what we're doing, or it's just not a good idea because of this and that. So I think those are the conversations that I'm hoping that this committee becomes.
Yeah, and for example, I'm going to go over the learning recovery again with you guys, and the areas we are looking at again, which was a lot of the input you provided is the stuff we're looking at. So I duly noted though on your input on that. So let's go with Linda, then Carolyn.
Sorry, guys, I'm working in child and all kinds of fun stuff. So a lot of the answers that you guys give us are political answers. They're good for you kind of comments. I happen to know, being a paraeducator myself years ago, that I was able to follow my child. Not my child, but my child when I was working with them in the school. I was able to.
Linda, we can't hear you.
Be there.
Yeah, we're having an issue hearing you, Linda.
Is that any better?
No, I think you're gonna have to stop or go outside.
We'll come back to you, Linda.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Carolyn and then Ashley.
Okay, I just had a few things with the paraeducators. Speaking on Jenna's issue with paras that were no longer, or she had requested no longer to work with her child, and then to see them working with her child again. How do we as parents have our request honored? And then also, I want to also ask, as a parent, and when you're working with what Suelynn had talked about, how her para had experience with high schoolers instead of elementary school, which was, I'm assuming, her child was at the time. How do we as parents get involved with who the para has been? Or I guess my question, how do we get involved in the process of who our child is paired up with as a para? Like, can we, before they're actually paired up, like review their background, review like what level they are, what kind of background they have? Because yes, we're told like, okay, we're assigning this person to your child because of their needs and the para's background, but we don't know what their background is. They know what our child's background is, and we have no idea. We just trust the district. We trust the school that it's a good match, but we don't know. Two, speaking on like consistency and feedback, can we have like a bulletin board on SEDAC that says, okay, at this meeting, these questions were asked and these are what we're going to follow up on. And we see a trail of how things are being. And then also like with paras, like, can we get the information, like how many paras do we have for the district? How many paras are at this level? How many paras are at that level? You know, and see, like, maybe we can actually, as parents, talk to people in the community and have conversations, and maybe somebody's interested and we're like, hey, you know, we need paras at this level. They need this kind of training, you know, and we can actually provide some kind of recruitment in working with the district to getting these kinds of paraprofessionals in place for our children and for our district, our community.
So as far as having input, that is an internal process. I'm just going to let you know that, where we have to determine as a district who is appropriate for the children. So the parents wouldn't have that. They wouldn't be able to have that kind of input or we can't really provide these backgrounds. There's obviously privacy laws in regards to that. But I want to answer your very first question you asked. How your request, was it something to do with your request being honored?
Sorry.
The first question you had.
Us losing our aid. all that. Yeah.
Oh, like if you could, like you're saying, keeping or losing your para. Is that what you were asking? The very first question.
Are you talking about Jenna?
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry, is that what?
No. She was referring to when I had requested to have an aid removed because they were physical with my son, and then a week later I was not notified and found out.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's something we probably would need to discuss. Obviously off this meeting right now, if that's what you were asking about. Because I obviously I don't know all those details. Is that what you were asking, Carolyn?
Yeah, I was just asking, just in hearing our other parents' stories, like how do we as a community as a parent have that kind of authority if we were to communicate that to our IEP team? How do we have that request honored?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You're saying to remove a specific person is what you're asking?
No, like just, like if for Jenna's case, it was a paraprofessional that didn't work well with her child and did things that were not conventional or were not in her IEP.
Yeah.
For Geraldine, she was talking about a paraprofessional who had never worked with an elementary school student.
Got it.
And, so like these kind of things, I understand there's background checks and you can't like share personal information, but these are professional, legitimate questions and concerns that our parents have that it's not like, oh, well, we can't tell you who we worked for. That's fine. You don't have to say who you worked for, but that kind of experience is important to us as parents when you're touching our child every day,
Got it.
We just need to know as parents that we have the ability, that transparency with adults that are working with our children.
For sure.
And so it's just understanding those kinds of things where we know, okay, so they're a tier 1. They are able to do these kinds of things. I have a tier 2, whatever the situation may be for the actual para that is required for that student. How do we as parents learn more about the para who's been paired with our child?
Yeah, and again, we have to make sure as a district that they have the appropriate qualifications and look in that. I mean, again, this is more of a particular question. I think that we as a district have to provide somebody according to the IEP that is appropriate, to help support those students. So I don't know. I can't, there's not really a system out there for a parent to be able to vet our paras, if that's what you're asking right now.
Not so much vet them, but, have that open communication and be able to speak to our IEP team and voice our concerns.
And you can, you 100% can do that every time whenever you're in an IEP, obviously we want, and we need to know your concerns because then we can work with that to determine, how to approach those situations. So thank you for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go Linda, Ashley, Kim, and then we're going to move on so I can go over a few other updates because it's already 10:30. So let's go Linda, Ashley, then Kim.
All right, let me go outside. Maybe. Okay, so a lot of the answers that we get from you guys are kind of just all political. We want real answers. Like, just be honest with us and tell us, well, we don't know yet. Like, don't just pull us around. A lot of these things I have inside history because I was a paraeducator, and you guys are saying, well, they have to have this and they have to have this. No, there is no communication to a paraeducator coming in to a classroom. And it's been proven time again. You've got somebody that's used to working with high schoolers, now working with an elementary school kid, and they've been given no background. The other thing, a paraeducator, in a way, is like hiring a babysitter for your child. You're not going to leave your child with just somebody who
is just Joe Blow off the street. And that is why I think a lot of us parents are like, we need a say in who is hired for our child, because that's what we would be doing when we hire a babysitter, hire anybody, work with anybody that works with our child. And for us who has got special needs kids, we cannot just leave them with just anybody. You guys get a resume. You guys get a piece of paper. That's how you know that person. You don't know these people. You don't know how they're going to react. Jenna is a prime example of that. You guys hired somebody. You put them out there. They had a bad experience with her child. You guys really didn't have it in kind of disciplinary actions. And then they were back with her child 2 weeks later. So
again, this is a specific thing that I can't, Linda, I don't know the whole situation, but I know you're bringing that up.
I understand that. Yeah. I understand that. But what I'm saying is you guys are hiring people on a piece of paper. You guys are looking at a paper where you are talking with these people and you are having a hiring process and so on and so forth. Simply put, the school district needs to almost have these people do like a 3-week oversight in a classroom with these kids, something, you know? And I mean, it's you're gonna get us as parents being very passionate about this because this is our child.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, but people that don't have special needs kids have a very hard time understanding. They'll say yes, they'll say we're trying, they'll say, oh, let's do this, they'll say this or that. But in all reality, if you're not dealing with it in your life, it's really hard to do. I'm also hearing from a very reliable source that our superintendent has made comments about how we have too many one-on-one paraeducators and that we will be getting rid of paraeducators. That they will not be rehired or they will not be put into a different.
Linda, I don't think we should get into that right now. I don't know where you heard that, information. I'm not.
And it could be coming down the pipeline, misunderstood, and I agree with that.
Okay.
But while we are on the communication of paraeducators, you as intern need to be aware of what we are all hearing.
Understandable.
To be able to make decisions and go forward. I'm not bringing this up saying I know this is a fact. I'm bringing this up. These are what we as parents are hearing. And it's concerning, whether or not that's a truth or not.
Got it.
So be it. And we can get that ironed out, as time goes on. But I feel it's important that you understand what we're hearing. Just like you're telling us what you're hearing.
Yes.
But yeah, paraeducators are a huge, huge thing. And if the school district is looking for advice, it's going to become where parents need to be involved in some format as to who their child's one-on-one is going to be. And I think the school district is doing itself a huge disservice by not including the parents in that hiring process. It's a very unique situation. I agree. It's hard. It's not, there isn't one clear-cut answer, but it is one of those things that I think the school district really needs to take a hard look at getting the parents involved in that process. There's nobody that knows our child more than the parent, especially the mom. And to at least have even a questionnaire for that paraeducator to look at from that parent as far as what their child's needs are as a one-on-one person is better than what we have right now. It's better than going through 3 months of schooling and finding out that your child's one-on-one isn't working out and your child's having a hard time. So I think that we've got a lot of room for improvement, and I'm so happy to hear about all of the training and opportunities that you guys are giving them. I've talked with a couple of paraeducators at Juana Maria, and they're like, good, we really appreciate that. So they are participating and they are hearing you guys, and that's awesome. We are very thankful for that. So
yeah, we take everything you're saying very seriously. So thank you for providing that. Ashley, then Kim, and then we're going to move on. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to just like branch off of what Suelynn said earlier. I think it's also perfectly okay for you to tell us that it's not the district's priority right now. Like if there's something that we're asking for and it's just like not going to happen, I think that answer is helpful, because then maybe we can show up at like a school board meeting. We can know that like it's actually not a priority at the moment, and kind of take that to somebody else. I feel bad like hearing all of these conversations, because I know that like you, Nick, are not the one like that is in charge or like in control of everything. I can tell all of you guys right now, we are never going to be the interviewers of our children's paraeducators. There's unions involved, there's law, there's legal, there's employment law. Like we're in California, it's an employee rights state. It is never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. So we might just want to drop that right now. However, when there is an issue, that absolutely needs to be addressed, because our children have rights as well. And when there is a bad fit, then they should be swapped out. But we are never going to be the final say on whether someone's hired at the school district or not, ever. The point that I really wanted to make just right now, though, is like asking us to come together for 2 hours a month. Like we all have to have some kind of perceived value, that either there's action happening, we're getting information that's valuable for us to move forward in our own advocacy with our own children or with our schools, and that we're seeing progress, or, just like that valid, very valid answer of like, hey, like this is not what's happening right now. I also want to point out, I think that you probably knew that paraeducation was going to be paraeducators were going to be a really hot topic. It probably wasn't the best like time-wise decision to throw in like another program ahead of it. I think these committees were not getting to like the meat of what we need to be talking about, because we get wrapped up and there's a lot of emotion around some of these topics that are district presented. So when we get to the district updates and we talk about those SELPA funds, there are some real actionable items, such as like, I want to know, are we going to be offered an extended school year? Are we getting 6 weeks again this year? Because I've been hearing that the summer programs are going to be kind of all inclusive like they were before and all summer long, and that there's like summer enrichment. And so I want to know, like, is that happening? Because if not, that's something that we absolutely need to take to the board and push forward like we did in one last year. And there are other topics that are just like really important, that are actionable, that we can work on. And when we spend the first 2 hours and 40 minutes just like airing grievances, which is very much our right to do so, because it's frustrating. We've had these conversations again and again and again, and that's not you, Nick. Like, that is absolutely not you. You walked into this, but you do need to know where we come from. And we do all expect at least the courtesy of saying, like, that's not even on the radar right now. Like, just let us know. So
well, and paras actually, just so all you know, paras are on the radar, like big time. And that is something we are very serious about and still looking into. And I know that's not the most satisfactory answer.
No, and I'm not even talking about paras. I'm just saying in general. Like Suelynn was saying earlier,
of course,
that like we have these conversations over and over and over. And I do think it's also fair. Like I know that like it's impossible to hire people right now, but probably everybody on this call doesn't have the same insight into that I do. So like you can bring that information here and like be a human and say like, look, these are the real like very valid challenges that we're facing. This is what we're trying to do. And like, this is how you can help, or I don't know. It's just, it doesn't have to be sort of like Linda was saying, it doesn't have to be like the right answer all the time. Like if this is a committee, then you're a part of our committee. You're supposed to be like here on our side with us. And sometimes that can mean saying like, look, like we don't have an answer. We don't have the funds. Like you guys need to go to the school board with this one because this is a budget issue, or you guys need to drop this because this is a union issue. And that's just outside of everyone's hands. Like you can talk to us that way. And I think, honestly, it's kind of a waste of my time to be here if you're not talking to us that way. So, so just thank you for being here. Thanks for walking into this. And, you know, I hope that you know that everyone's like agitation is not with you, because I do sense a little bit of like you know, frustration, and that's fair.
No, I'm totally, I'm here to listen to your input. I want to hear your input. So thank you, Ashley. We do, Kim, couple minutes. We do need to move on quickly. So if you have a quick statement, that's fine, but we do need to move on here.
I'm not sure how quick it is, but I'll do my best. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sort of following up from the last three ladies. And I was thinking, we've been discussing all year long, all school year long, that we wanted to talk about paras, and we clearly didn't get to where we needed to get today. So I just was thinking maybe we could take a vote on paras being the topic of the next SEDAC meeting, so that we can maybe get to some particulars. It's true what Ashley said. I mean, we're never going to actually have as much input as we want with the paras, but there are things that do work. There are good stories out there, and if we share some of the things that have worked and where we can be more involved with the paras, I think there's some compromising, and there's some very specific questions we need answered in particulars that, if we discuss them, would be helpful to you know, everyone involved. Because here's what one thing
we got to about 10:45. Sorry, Kim, because we do have to move on.
Okay, this is a very this is probably the most discouraging meeting we probably had. Would anyone agree on that? Because I think we're getting to where,
yes,
I mean, we can't even speak or get our questions answered, and it's frustrating because we are taking our time, and it's hard to do that as a parent of a child with special needs. Period.
I understand.
And so I just want to. I'm thinking, can we vote at least that we talk about this at length next time, and that's all we talk about, and we really get some, you know, get somewhere next time, because I think that that's, you know, it's not only about the children, it's about their parents, because this weighs heavy on every parent. And when we go home at night or we wake up in the morning, we're still dealing with the same issues. And if we're not getting anywhere, isn't that what we set this up for, is to really make some progress and to have some results? So I think it's like every mom is talking about the same thing. And I understand that there's a legal department on your back right now, obviously, and you're not allowed to say a lot of things, but can we discuss some very simple, specific, efficient, reasonable compromises?
I think you have very good, I think I'm processing what you're saying. So thank you for providing that information. I don't think we would take a vote right now, but I'm going to talk to Marcus about what you're saying, because I do think, again, the paraeducator situation is a hot topic, right? Like it's a discussion that everybody wants to have. Yeah. So that's something we'll consider for sure, Kim. So thank you.
Like, how can we run it more efficiently? How can we get our questions answered? How can mothers feel like they're being validated and respected, and their child, is safe during the day, and that they really know what's going on? I mean, I'm actually speaking for many other people. I have a very good situation, but it didn't come without some arm grease. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
So it's going to be an ongoing topic for the rest of our lives. Okay. And I just feel like if every family could get some sort of relief and some peace of mind, that would be very fair to them.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. And Marcus will be on too next week with me to help run this, and we'll look at that.
Great.
So thank you, Kim. And I will discuss, he's listening. I think he's either listening or he's going to be listening soon. Because we look at this together and we discuss what you guys are saying. So thank you for providing that input, and we'll move forward. We do have monthly themes, so I have to see where that falls into. So thank you for providing that info.
Thank you.
We'll put out we're going to put out a form so you guys can submit some questions in that form also. So not just what we have here, but other things that you want to discuss or that have been discussed today. So we can look at that and consider the information. Listen, everybody here, by the way, I know I want you to know personally for me, I want to hear what you have to say. Like, I think it's very important to hear that. And I'm sorry if I'm not trying to cut people. It's just, we do have a 2-hour time frame, as you know, and we can't, it's not that I don't want to hear from everybody. It's that we have to somewhat stay on schedule to the best of our ability. So that's why we probably need to move on a little bit. Because we do have some updates from PAC, CAC, which I want to get to in a second. But since we're on it, I wanted to kind of mention a couple things here. Let me see here. Give me a second. Let me see here. So yeah, we'll create something to submit for questions. Sorry, I have a lot of. Okay, so briefly, let me go over. I can find it. So again, considering the learning recovery funds, again, we have listened to your input. We are looking at these areas. I can give you what I have. We have been investing. We've brought on social workers. We've brought on a lot of additional staff already to look at, the needs and to identify learning needs. So that's a focus area we're really looking at. We're looking at materials and teachers and what they need. The other area, again, is the social emotional needs of students. I don't have time to get into it right now, but we're looking at peers training, which is a really highly successful type of curriculum. We're looking to implement that, looking at our autism programs and other students that have social deficits. That's something we're really, really looking into. We think it's something that's needed in the district. And again, we're continuing to use funds to produce high quality instruction. We're as providers, we're doing trainings also to make sure that we are supporting parents at the level that we need to support, especially through the IEP process. Again, we're looking at additional supports and services and, different personnel. Again, we are looking at our para situation. We're looking at all of our different related services to find ways to support our student. Those are the main focuses that we have. And I know you guys probably want, and again, I'd like to say, for example, the peers is one for the social emotional, right? It's a research-based curriculum that's used everywhere. And I know Tammy's involved. Tammy's spearheading that. We're looking into it. We don't have time to go into all of that, but that's an example of how we're looking at the learning recovery funds. Again, also with the para trainings and training for staff. Those are things we are looking into. And I'd like to spend more time on it, but we do need to have a couple other updates I wanted to share with you guys.
I'm sorry, Nick. And I know Kim has her hand raised.
I just never took it down. I apologize.
Okay. What is the status on extended school year? Is it?
Oh, okay. Sorry. You asked that question earlier.
Sorry.
That has been worked on. Not just that, we're looking at all the summer school programs, obviously, because you mentioned all of that, right? You're not going to like my answer, but the information should be coming out. I can't give you an exact time frame, but that's something that we have been looking at because you're curious about the 4 to 6 weeks. I don't have that specific information. The district team we have right now is working very hard on the whole program. There's a lot of components there, as you know. So that information will be coming out when we can send that out, we will. But that's something that's we're obviously looking at that information right now for the 4 to the 6 or just the other programs too for summer.
Okay, great. Well, if you can please pass along to whoever needs to hear it, that it is a huge, huge equity issue and legal issue if we have 4 weeks of ESY and there's 8 weeks of general ed summer school options. They try to say that the June boost and the August whatever is open to all, accessible. It is absolutely not, because our kids need therapy services and special education and everything else. Last year when this was going on, I talked to multiple organizations, including California Disability Rights, and they were like all over it. So it is definitely an issue that if we are going to have a full summer school option for every child, we need to have at least 6 weeks of ESY with IEPs. So that's all I'll say on that. But it doesn't end here if it comes out that this is 4 weeks. And that's why I've been pinging you guys on it, because I hate to have to, pull out the big stuff. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you, Ashley. But those are things we are totally working on right as we speak. Kim, you actually do have your hand up this time. Go ahead.
I do, because Ashley just reminded me of something I wanted to just put on you can just write it down and have a discussion. Maybe you can update us the next time we see you. But I am curious about the homestead availability to our children with IEPs, because it's not been available all year.
Okay.
And there's going to be a lot of parents who are going to want that again next year. And legally, it's already gone to the Supreme Court in Northern California, and you should already be implementing that by law, but you're not. And I'm wondering if you can look into that and let us know if that's going to be available as it should be to our kids.
So home instruction, SPED population. Okay.
Homestead, which has been available to any student without an IEP all year, has not been available to any child with an IEP.
Got it. Okay.
That's been illegal. So for us, we'd like to know how you're going to make that right in the fall of 2022.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to come back to you shortly because I want a CAC report, because I know you had a recent meeting. But before I get to that.
Yes. Thank you.
No problem. Again, we are working just some district updates. We're working closely with county and state departments, as well as inter-departments within the district as we begin our expanded TK journey towards universal TK. So it's something we're working on. We're working on elementary to middle and middle to high school transition meetings, and they are underway right now as we look towards the new school year. We are continuing to build our data system to dramatically enhance our ability to be responsive with respect to special education student achievement, because that is something we are working on strongly, because we do think that is a big deal, right, with student achievement. And the last thing here is we are designing and beginning to implement responsive and supportive staffing and training efforts. Again, a lot of your input is on this. We're looking at SEL, inclusive practices, ABA, and RBT, which is rational behavior therapy practices. We're looking in all of that. And like I said earlier with the paras, the CPI and verbal de-escalation techniques, that's something we are pushing out. And as I said earlier, we are beginning on exploring the program for education enrichment of rational skills, also known as peers. So wanted to give those quick updates. We only have a few more minutes. I do want to have feedback about the CAC. So Kim, if you can share anything from that meeting.
There's so much information that I'm just going to summarize it. And if you want to read more about it, you can go to the SELPA website and click on this CAC SMORE summary of things. But there are a few cool things happening that you all should know about. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Well, I was just going to say too, for anybody who has not done the transition fair, I have a 10-year-old, but I decided just to see what the transition fair was all about. And it was virtual, and I found it very helpful and informative, just in like getting familiar with the lingo, with the options and the opportunities. And so I just wanted to share that with everyone, because, there'll be another one, I guess, in the fall, and it'll probably still be virtual. If you all are interested in it being virtual and in person, then you need to reach out to the powers that be, because I think we in the CAC decided that we'd like to have both, if that's possible. I know that makes it way more complicated, but anyways, so I just wanted to say the transition fair was informative. Yeah. I enjoyed it. Getting familiar with what we have ahead of us. The next thing is there is some funding on mental health, some extra funding, but I guess it's $2 million less than is needed, and it usually goes to the SELPA. but for now it's going to be going to the districts. And if that's an issue that you're concerned about, you should reach out to the SELPA and the special ed department and discuss your concerns. I'm not read up on that, so I can't give you any of my thoughts on it. But there's also a new bill being written, and this is interesting, and it may not affect our children because it'll probably take 10 years for it to be, effective. But Republican Senator of California, Ball, B-O-G-H, and it's SB 1113, if anybody wants to read about it. It's a new bill she's writing about inclusion. I have not read the whole bill, but it may be something that you all might find of interest. I intend to read it and see what she's proposing. Let me tell you. There is a inclusion conference coming up, 4 different sessions over the next year. The first one is starting on April 25th from 3 to 5 p.m. And it will be virtual. And you can find the information either on the SELPA website or the CAC newsletter. It's quite inspiring, the women that are going to be speaking at this event. So I'm looking forward to it, and I want you all to be aware of it because I think it'll be uplifting to some extent and informative. And there will be 4 different conferences over the next year. They will all be virtual except for the one next May, but all that information as well is on the SELPA website. And I think that's pretty much what I have for you.
Oh, that's great. Did anybody else attend the transition fair? If you have 30 seconds to share, if you did, thank you. That's great information. I'm glad you brought that today.
I attended the fair. Yeah.
I mean, but
go ahead, Michelle.
I was just saying, I attended the fair. I definitely would, and this might just be me, I definitely would prefer an in-person situation. It was pretty hairy-carry trying to navigate which room to go in. And then also like some of the buttons were missing. So you had to request to go into certain rooms. And with the amount of time allotted for it, it's kind of difficult to touch base in every single venue because you really had to like kind of commit to going to some very specific places. And that kind of meant that you had to have a little bit of a plan in place for where you were going to go. So just for me personally, I would definitely prefer an in-person situation. However, the vendors that are there are fantastic, and the administrators that are there are also fantastic and very helpful. I just don't know if something to that scale is applicable efficiently in a virtual setting, but otherwise I highly recommend everyone attend at some point, especially if your child is moving even into middle school, because it does give you that idea of what ongoing services look like and what is available to those students, even moving into adulthood, which is very, very valuable. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your 2 cents. Okay. Well, what we're going to do, we're out of time. We're going to be check your emails. We're going to be sending you something so you can ask your questions, and we'll do our best to have a portion of that for next meeting if we can, depending on the subjects. And I understand I'm going to review all this, look at all this, and yeah, we will meet again sometime in April. Go ahead, Ashley.
For our next meeting, can we change the format so that we do site reports first and then like do the conversation later? Just because it's been many months since we just heard what's going on at everybody's school.
Yes, because you're right, because we ran out of time today before we could go into that. So yeah, let me look into that. I don't think that would be an issue. So
and the district update would be great in the beginning as well, I think.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll talk to Marcus about these things, and we'll see what we can do for next month. So thank you guys, and have a good weekend. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.